Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, May 27th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feast and Marian meditations. Well, we have a number of meditations, a number of feasts today, mostly from Italy, but we also have one in Portugal, and then also Badajoz in Extremadura, Spain. So to get us started, we'll start with what the Abbot Orsini tells us. He says, today we celebrate the dedication of Our Lady of Naples, called Saint Mary Major, by Pope John II in the year 533. A picture of the Most Blessed Virgin Mary, painted by St. Luke, has been carefully preserved in this church. Okay, so again, this is the church in Naples. There's a church of Saint Mary Major in Rome, but we're talking about Our Lady of Naples. So, the Basilica Sanctuary of Carmine Maggiore is one of the largest basilicas in Naples. It dates back to the 13th century, and it stands in the Piazza Carmine, on the side of what was once the market square. Now, a tradition says that the Carmelites fled the Holy Land during the persecution following the Islamic invasion of the Holy Land. And they brought with them an icon of the Virgin of Tenderness, which was believed to be painted by St. Luke the Evangelist. So, it's said to be the first image venerated by the ancient Carmelite order, and once it was in Naples, it was enshrined above the high altar of their church. The image became known as La Bruna, or Madonna Bruna, because of the dark tone of her skin, which was the result of, votive candles which burned before it for centuries. In the year 1500, the Black Madonna was taken in procession to Rome. Many miracles occurred in the course of its pilgrimage, and the icon was displayed at St. Peter's Basilica for 3 days. There were so many miracles that occurred that when the icon returned home, the ruler of Naples, Federico d'Aragona, King Frederick II, decided to test the Mother of God. So King Frederick had the audacity to seemingly demand a miracle from heaven. He ordered all of the sick, the lame, the blind, the crippled, and anyone of his kingdom with any kind of illness to come to the church on June 24th to implore a cure from heaven. He instructed that they were all to assemble, having had examinations, and with written documentation as proof of their sickness or disability on the appointed day. On June 24th of that year, a mass was celebrated in the presence of the king, his nobles, and all the people. During the consecration, a ray of vivid light was seen to rest on the face of the Madonna, and at the same time reflecting its light upon each of the sick and infirm. In that instant, they were all cured of their maladies, and this miraculous cure was authenticated by many witnesses. He was going to put Mary to the test, and it didn't work. Or I guess it did work because she healed everybody. Okay, well, that's what the Abbot Orsini has to say. We also celebrate Notre Dame des Malerets in Vicky Allier, Auvergne in France, which I don't think I actually mentioned. Yeah, we're going to be in France. So to accommodate the many Catholics coming to its healing waters, in 1672, the spa town of Vicky began enlarging the church of St. Blaise. When the work was completed on March 26, 1714, the dark walnut statue of Our Lady of the Sick was installed there. It dated back from the 1300s and had many miracles, but unfortunately the statue was decapitated during the French Revolution, and all of its dresses, crowns, and jewels, it says here, dispersed. That's a nice way of saying stolen. An 11-year-old boy, Claude Baffier, saved the head. In 1801, with a new body, the Black Virgin was reinstalled in St. Blaise. The next year, Our Lady of the Sick made the first of her torchlight processions towards the Old Town, which is still performed annually on the Feast of the Assumption, that's August 15th. During the heyday of spa therapy between the wars, demand outgrew the Church of St. Blaise, and a new church was built adjoining it in 1931. We're told that the Art Deco concrete dome is a jewel box of mosaics, stained glass, and enamel work. Atop is a 16-foot statue, of Our Lady of the Sick. The Black Virgin, crowned on May 27th, 1937, still receives homage in the old church of St. Blaise. Then we jump down to Italy, where they celebrate Liberatrice dei Flagelli in Bosco Reale, Napoli, Campania in Italy. That's the liberator from plagues, but it's the feminine form, like the liberatrix from plagues, if that's a word. And if it's not, whatever. So this sanctuary is dedicated to Our Lady, the Liberatress of plagues. And the devotion to this image goes back to the Jesuit fathers in the 1600s, right? So on May 27th, 1876, yes, much later, a man by the name of Francesco Barbuto, who was from Naples and a resident between Torre Annunziata and Bosco Reale, if you know those cities are, and if you don't, it doesn't matter, was going to visit a relative of his wife's. And so he was walking towards Bosco Reale. But as he was crossing this area known as the Jesuits' zone, all of a sudden there was a very quick and torrential storm that broke out. And so, what did he do? In order to shield himself from the rain, he took refuge in the Jesuit chapel. Now, the storm kept getting worse and worse and worse, but Francesco, who was a faithful man, began to pray the rosary. So, in the midst of these prayers and everything, it was very, very intense. There were all sorts of lightning and thunder. And, however, he heard a small voice that invited him to remove the grains of wheat that occupied a good part of the room he was in. Right? He said, okay, so he did. He removed these, there was it seems like grass that was just kind of stuck against the wall. And after he removed the last one, he saw that there was an image there. This pious artisan grabbed it, cleaned it up, and he started to contemplate it. The sweet face of Mary rewarded him with a look of maternal tenderness, right? And so in that moment, this image was recognized, right? And everyone was so surprised by the miracle that people started coming in pilgrimage. And so Francesco, when the storm ended, he started letting people know that this was the image. And so people were very happy. They started coming to the church, and it seems like the church was abandoned, so that's why they're bringing all the different things to prepare the altar, right? So it's interesting. So it says here, and this is important, the lawyer Bartolo Longo, who is, I think he's a blessed or a saint now. He's in the Shrine of Our Lady of Pompeii in Naples. In his history of the Shrine of Pompeii, which is one of his books, he says that he was concerned and worried if the shrine that he had planned to build would actually succeed. And he said he was so surprised and hit inspired by the devotion towards Our Lady, the Liberator of Plagues, that he thought actually of founding a sanctuary right there in Bosco Reale. Interesting. Now we jump down to Portugal, where they celebrate Senhora da Piedade, Santa Tarém, Alentejo, Portugal. The statue changed appearance during the Spanish invasion of that region in 1663. So on June 8th, 1663, during the War of Succession, in which the Portuguese independence was in dispute, one of the most important battles between Portugal and Spain took place on the fields of Amexial. A few days before the battle, on May 27th, the Castilians had just conquered the fortress of Alentejo, and they were on their way to Lisbon. Seeing the serious danger they were in, the devout commanders of the Portuguese battalion in Santarém immediately turned to the image of Our Lady of Mercy in a chapel near Leira Gate. The Portuguese asked the Blessed Virgin to intercede, to protect them, and to give them a sign to strengthen their faith. At that moment, the Virgin leaned over her son's face in such a way that there was no more than a hand's breadth between them. Slowly, the movement continued until the following day, leaving no space for Our Lady's thin veil to pass through. Thus, the troops from Santa Tarém, who had made up about 2/3 of the battalion, left confidently and joined the Portuguese of the Count of Valleflor, bound for Alentejo. Having won the Battle of Amexial, one of the most dangerous Spanish attacks of the period, King Alfonso VI ordered in gratitude the construction of the current Church of Our Lady of Mercy on the site of the old chapel. So, then we jump down to Spain, many years later, where they celebrate La Virgen de los Dolores de Chandávila, La Codocera, Badajoz, Extremadura in Spain. That's Our Lady of Sorrows. So the feast is usually celebrated on the last Sunday of May, which commemorates an apparition on May 27th, 1945, to the girls Marcelina and Afra Brigada Blanco, and also the shrine was dedicated on May 27th, 1947. So it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on May 27th, 1945, that Marcelina Barroso, who was 10, went to walk to a nearby house with her cousin, Agustina Gonzalez, it was like a store to go and fulfill something that her mother had asked. They had gone more than 3 kilometers, when passing a certain area known as Candavila, Marcelina suddenly turned into a dark and strange path that divided that kind of divided it, right? She thought that that it would kind of get her back to the place she was going. So yes, so this path, she saw something that caught her attention, and it was I guess a chestnut tree, and she saw it was clearly Our Lady of Sorrows, right? She with a black veil, and she was covered with surrounded by beautiful luminous rays, and she was about halfway up the trunk, right? And she was looking towards the town with her hands together, and a very beautiful face that reflected a divine sadness, right? After a few seconds of the vision, she disappeared, and so Marcelina ran towards the town together with her cousin, even though her cousin Agustina hadn't seen anything. When they got home, they thought of keeping silence, but they couldn't stay quiet, and so they told their mother, and then the news spread throughout the entire town. Rather than forget about the event, 8 days later, June 4th, in the morning, Our Lady began to reappeared to Marcelina, asking her to come back in the afternoon, because she had to make a certain sacrifice in the presence of the neighbors. So the news spread that Our Lady was supposed to come back, so more than 1,000 people were there at the place waiting for that. So Marcelina was about 70 meters from this tree, and then suddenly Our Lady of Sorrows started coming down from heaven, and slowly but surely she got down to the point of resting on the tree, like she was the first time. So Our Lady invited Marcelina to to crawl on her knees towards her, but the girl, who saw that the ground was full of rocks, like spines and all sorts of things that would cut her, obviously hesitated. But Our Lady told her not to worry and assured her that that she would, as the girl went, she would put out a wonderful carpet of flowers and herbs. So she crawled on her knees up there, and there she stayed. When she reached the tree, she stayed about 10 minutes in ecstasy, right? And so she said she saw Our Lady. It was very beautiful. Yes, very beautiful. And so behind Our Lady, she saw this beautiful shrine with a holy water font, and Our Lady told her to wet her fingers in the water and to make the sign of the cross. After the apparition, or behind the apparition, was the altar, the high altar, and Our Lady asked her if she wanted to go with her. And so the visionary replied, "Yes, right now, my lady." And the Most Blessed Virgin smiled, gave her a hug, kissed her on her forehead, and said, "Then I would like you to build a shrine in my honor." Sure enough, when Our Lady, after the ecstasy, Marcelina had no injuries on her knees whatsoever, in spite of the fact that she had crawled on her knees some 70 meters over this very spiny terrain. She was the only person who could contemplate Our Lady, right? The other people did not see him, although on later occasions, she was accompanied by her teacher and some other friends, right? So again, these, literally, I have pages and pages and pages here of miracles and ecstasies and things like that, so it keeps going. End of the story is that, the church has never officially declared regarding these apparitions, right? But it did permit the construction of a shrine, which was completed on May 27th, 1947, right? There is, it's a huge complex, which has a small chapel that covers and surrounds the tree, the chestnut tree, where Our Lady appeared. And there is a very large church, which has an image of Our Lady of Sorrows in it, right? Yes, so they had a beautiful Jubilee year that they celebrated, and they even were able to have the Holy Door in 2020. So every year, on the 27th of May, there's a huge pilgrimage that takes place. Okay, there we go. End of the story. And that is what we are celebrating today, May 27th, in the Marian world. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we continue with Meditation 74, Mary's last years. And here, in point 4, we consider her life of sacrifice. And so this is divided into different points, into 3 points actually: obedience, poverty, and mortification. In obedience, not only to the evangelical laws, but also to whatever St. Peter and the apostles ordered for the welfare of the church. She never asked for an exemption. She never believed herself exempt from any rule. She was the first to obey and submit herself. She saw the representatives of God in those vested with authority, and in their commands, she saw the will of God. Second, in poverty. She lived on alms as her son had done. She was satisfied with whatever distributions the apostles made to the widows and the other poor amongst the faithful. She would never consent to any distinction whatever being made on her behalf. Many believe that Mary so loved poverty, which she had been so fervently and lovingly practiced by her son, which she had seen so fervently and lovingly practiced by her son, that she was the first to take the vow of poverty, becoming thereby the model of so many souls who in her footsteps would eventually choose the way of poverty as an excellent means of sanctification. And thirdly, in mortification. As St. Ambrose says, her temperance and abstinence were admirable and even heavenly. She would eat in the most simple and ordinary manner. She would very often practice fast and penances. Equally, she would rest only for the minimum time necessary to sustain life. She would spend the greater part of the night in vigil and devote herself to prayer. Compare your life with hers, and realize how you are not entitled to boast of your little sacrifices. For today's reading from The Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we continue with Chapter 9, considering the Heart of Mary as the sanctuary, censer, and altar of divine love. Of this altar of the glorious Virgin's ardent heart, united as it is with the divine heart of her Son Jesus, do we say at the beginning of Holy Mass, Introibo ad altare Dei, I shall go up to the altar of God. These two altars, two hearts, being only one heart, as we have often said, they are likewise but a single altar. On this altar the sacrifice which we are about to offer has been offered time and again by mother and son. Therefore does Holy Church put those words 3 times on the lips of the priest at the beginning of Mass, to admonish us that we should offer our sacrifice on that divine altar, and not merely on the material and visible altar, which is only a shadow of the former. Having therefore to offer our sacrifice on so holy and divine an altar, we must offer it in union with the love, charity, humility, and holiness of the admirable hearts of Jesus and Mary, who are, in a sense, but one heart and one altar. We also designate it as the Holy of Holies when, on ascending the altar, we pray God to deliver us from our iniquities, ut ad sancta sanctorum puris meriamur mentibus introrare, that we may be worthy to enter with pure minds into the Holy of Holies. Holy Church refers again to the heart of Mary when we are made to say during the wonderful sacrifice, "We humbly beseech thee, Almighty God, command these to be carried by the hands of thy holy angel, the angel of the great council, to thine altar on high, in the presence of thy divine majesty, so that as many of us shall, by partaking at this altar, receive the most sacred body and blood of thy Son, may be filled with all heavenly grace and blessing." Notice that when the priest says, "Et ac altaris participatione," he kisses the material altar, as being the figure of the true mystical and spiritual altar, namely, the heart of Jesus and Mary. This reveals the intimate union of our own heart should have with that most amiable heart at all times and in all places, but more especially during the oblation of the divine sacrifice.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.